Welcome to The Voice of Retail for the week of October 21st, 2019. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. In this week's episode, back-to-back exclusive interviews with retail and marketing visionaries. First, an exclusive interview with Ron Jonson, veteran retailer credited with taking the vision of Steve Jobs and crafting Apple retail into the behemoth it is today, taking over JCPenney with a bold experiment in mass merchant retailing, and then now CEO of Enjoy. Recorded live from his offices in California, I connect with Ron just prior to his main stage keynote presentation at RCC's DTL QC conference in Montreal November 5th. We talk about his perspectives on the current future state of retailing and where his new venture, Enjoy, fits into key moments of truth for the consumer. Next, I talk to Ron Tite, Toronto-based author, marketing guru, and stand-up comedian about his latest book, Think, Do, Say, Building Personal and Organizational Momentum in a Busy, Busy World. Lastly, I'll take a look at the retail news of the week, but first, let's listen to my interview with Ron Jonson. Ron, welcome to The Voice of Retail. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Michael.
Well, thanks so much for making time to speak with me. I'm really looking forward to meeting you in Montreal, November 5th at Retail Council of Canada's DTL conference. But in advance of that, such a treat to be able to speak with you and delve into some of your wisdom. But why don't we kick off with a little bit about yourself for the listeners who may not know your background, and tell us about your personal and professional journey up until what you're doing today.
Yeah, well, I'm a lifelong retail guy. I'm from Minnesota, so I grew up very close to Canada. I actually played a few soccer games when I was in high school up in Canada.
Fantastic.
And went to Stanford, got an undergraduate degree, went to Harvard Business School, got my MBA, and then decided, I want to be a retail guy. And so my first job after Harvard, I got this unbelievable job unloading trucks in a Mervyn store in Southern California. But I wanted to learn the business from the ground up. So I unloaded trucks, and then I got promoted to work on the floor, and I got to run the cash register. But eventually learned a lot about the retail industry, and it was a great decision. I've loved it for over 3 decades now.
Well, it is a familiar story because at the leadership level, you really get to recognize how retail is a meritocracy. You can work your way up, in your case, from unloading the tail of a 53-foot truck all the way to leadership positions, just based on skill and talent.
Yeah, because the thing about retail, you can measure the results. If you're running a store, you can tell a great store manager. You get your reports daily. If you're a merchant, you're a buyer, you can tell the ones who are selecting great merchandise and working well with their partners. And that's one of the things that attracted me, quite frankly. It was a fast-moving industry, but it's a meritocracy. And the best people tend to get ahead. Yeah.
Looking back over your career, did you imagine that retail would wind up where it is here today? So much change in retail, but could any of us imagine? But did you see some of this coming? I mean, you're so instrumental.
When I joined Mervyn's back in 1984, it was the beginning of several revolutions in retail. During my early days in Minnesota, the mall had just disrupted Main Street, and these big suburban shopping malls like Yorkdale in Toronto, it really made it hard for Main Street to compete for a while. And then about the mid-'80s, you had the specialty store being created. That was when Mickey Drexler was the young CEO of the Gap, and he really helped the Gap reposition. You had the big box retailers just starting in the mid-'80s. That's when Toys R Us was founded, and office stores like Staples and big box stores like Best Buy were starting to grow. And so
Barnes & Noble
so I was joining an industry undergoing change, but I had no idea the pace of change. And none of us anticipated what Amazon would do in the early 90s when they opened that bookstore.
It feels like an eon ago, but it's really only been 20 years. It feels like, to me, the pace of change is accelerating. And I guess the magic is how you harness this disruption. And I want to get to your current endeavor in a minute, but just reflecting back on you spent years in the department store category and also in specialty with Apple. Do you think there's a future for large department store mass merchant formats?
I think if there's a future, it's a very different one than they have today. I think the large stores work in the big cities, Because you've got to take a really strong population base that you serve, whether it's a work there, urban population, people that come downtown, tourists. But some of the best department stores in the world are located in big cities like London and Paris and New York. And even there, it's not easy, but at least you have a chance because you've got to be able to retool the entire store to deliver what customers want now, which is deep engagement, deep excitement. They want an experience. And it's hard to do that in, a smaller town where you have a big store and the population isn't shopping there as much. So I think for department stores to win, they've got to have many fewer stores and they've got to completely redo the experience.
I guess that's connected. You brought up Yorkdale, one of the great malls in North America. And I've been thinking on and reflecting on the new Hudson Yards in Manhattan, which is kind of an interesting expression of what you're describing, right? That kind of experiential.
Right. It is, but like Hudson Yards, I went there. There's a brand new Neiman Marcus store. It's actually their first store in New York, but it's a really well done store, and it's in a shopping environment that has all kinds of digital first brands, so places you might want to go. It's got an incredible array of food. It's got the shed, it's got the climbing thing. There's enough there between not just what the retailers do, what the developer does to create a place that people want to come. Yorkdale has that downtown because Toronto's a great city. I mean, it's really been well thought through from how people navigate the city. I get lost in those tunnels like I used to get lost in the skyways in Minneapolis. I mean, the skyways, at least you could look out and see where you were. You get in these tunnels, and you might never get out.
You're like a gopher. It's true. Exactly. You feel like a gopher.
Yeah, that's a play on my old Minnesota roots, the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
That's right. Yeah. Well, let's talk about harnessing disruption and let's talk about Enjoy. What is Enjoy, and tell me how it fits into your vision of what modern retail is.
Yeah, my view of the retail world today is customers are demanding more. The big sea change over the last 2 decades, as we talked about earlier, is this growth of online shopping. And online shopping is an amazingly convenient, easy thing to do for products that really are convenient, are everyday essentials of your life that you just don't want to go to the store for. I might not run down to Loblaws if I can get something delivered to me, but it's not very good for products that are really important to you. And so I started to ask the question, if people are starting digitally, is there another way for an online buying experience to end? Everything today ends at your doorstep. But imagine if someone could come through the door. What if you could have an experience like you get at a great Apple store in the comfort of your home or the convenience of your office? Well, that would be game changing. And so we began 4 or 5 years ago on a journey to invent the mobile retail store, where now you got online stores and physical stores, and now the store will come to you. And it's been really popular. We're very excited. As you probably know, we're launching. We just launched, I guess, depending when you play this video, on the 29th with Rogers in the greater Toronto area.
Yeah, so
we'll be able to deliver mobile retail experiences to everyone in the Toronto MSA starting this October 29th.
It's exciting for a couple of reasons. Because I love your focus on this moment of truth, because we know there's a couple of moments of truth in the online buying journey. And one of the ones that's not thought through as thoroughly as you clearly have is that I order the product arrives, and then what?
Yeah.
It feels like you've put a lot of thought into that moment of truth that really can define the purchase experience so intimately. It does. Right?
There's so many advantages to this. In Canada, for a variety of reasons, it takes a long time from when you order online till you receive your product. Sometimes it takes 5 to 7 days. Well, we're available same day if we're available. We do most of our visits today and tomorrow. We're free. We come through the door. And I just think when someone buys something really important, and Rogers gets this. Rogers is a premium brand focused on delighting their customers. They came to us and said, wouldn't it be great if our customers could order a product and have it hand delivered today, and they could get as much help as they needed, whether that was with Rogers, activating their new phone, reviewing their plan, making sure they're getting the most out of their Rogers relationship, or on the phone itself. How do I navigate my new iPhone? How do I take these new pictures when it's got 3 cameras? What does a wide angle really do for me? Wow, they updated their software. The photo tools are really amazing now. I can take and create even better pictures. Well, to give a customer knowledge on how to do that, plus get up and running with their new device like magic, is a really great service. So we've thought through the friction and tried to overcome that.
Now, how do you operationalize that? Who's the team, the we in that sentence that's in the consumer's home that's shepherding that experience?
For us, our product is a person, and it's one of our really hand-selected, highly trained Enjoy experts. Now, they're Enjoy experts to us. To Rogers customers, they're what's called a pro on the go. Rogers loves to refer to these people as pros, and they are. It's like a professional. It's someone who's really a professional at Rogers and the product you're buying. And so you're getting a really well-trained person in your home. They're all full-time employees. A lot of people in the delivery economy are contractors, and I don't personally believe in that, but whether you're getting a ride with someone from Uber, someone's delivering you the door, the odds are that's a contractor working part-time trying to scrape up some extra money, where our people are full-time employees, trained, they have stock in the company, they have extraordinary benefits from day one, including healthcare, which I know is a big feature of Canada, has been for years. So it's a whole different model.
And so in markets, in more advanced markets, let's say beyond outside Canada, where you have multiple clients, do the same individuals handle different products and different vendors?
Yeah, we do, because we're kind of like a specialty mobile retail store. Customers will buy from multiple consumer electronics brands. Sonos is a leader in Wi-Fi listening, and so we're a partner with Sonos. We're a partner with Google. Google's got a lot of neat products, and they're getting better and better at hardware. So the same expert will deliver both, because that's what's give us speed. Because if every expert can have the entire product line, we can be closer to the customer, and that's how we get really fast. And we've done a visit in as fast as 7 minutes, believe it or not.
Wow.
Can you imagine ordering online and someone being at your home in 7 minutes? We've done, sometimes we integrate with the call centers with our partners. So you're calling the call center, you're getting help, and someone says, well, I can make an appointment when everyone's there. And before you've hung up the phone, someone's knocking on the door, and then you've got a conference between the call center employee, the Rogers Pro on the go, and the customer, and you're kind of scratching your head and saying, this is too good to be true.
Yeah, wait, what just happened there?
Yeah, exactly. Now, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen all the time, but it's happened. And that's the beauty of our model, because we're a mobile retail store. We're built for the future. I used this comment when we were launching with Rogers. We're a little bit like Wayne Gretzky, your Canadian superstar hockey player. We're skating where the puck's going, and trying to stay ahead of the game. And that's why it's really fun to partner with a company like Rogers.
Well, I'm an ex-Rogers employee, so I know of what you speak. I work for the Shopping Channel, which is the Canadian version of like a QVC, and it's owned by Rogers Media. So I know the Rogers team well. So you're in good hands.
Good for you.
You gave me a good segue to kind of my last question, which is putting your forecasting hat on. Where's retail going to be in 5-10 years? What's the most startling difference in the industry and consumer that you can see forward if you can?
Well, what I see, the good news, I really believe today physical stores have the upper hand. For the past 20 years, kind of the online store has been kind of whacking at them. But now that the great physical retailers have their own online stores, and you can order and have it delivered to you, or you can order and pick it up in the store, they really offer a better overall service model than a digital-only brand. So I think the physical store will be around. I think it'll be very different. I think in Canada, as in the United States, there will be fewer total choices of stores. But the ones that remain will become better and better and better. And they will have reinvented the entire shopping experience. It will start digitally. increasingly artificial intelligence will start to ping you as a customer to say, hey, it's time to upgrade your phone. It's time to fill your closet. Here's how you do it. We'll be using voice much more than we'll be using keyboards or touching phones. But ultimately, the vendor of choice will be a great physical retailer like Rogers, Loblaws, you name it. Hopefully Hudson Bay. I hope Hudson Bay thrives in this world. I know one it won't be is Target. I don't think they're going to come back to Canada after they went through. But I do think we'll just be shopping differently.
Right. Well, it's good to hear you thinking that physical retail, and I love all retail, but it's good to hear that you're thinking physical retail will be kind of off the back foot. And
it already is. It is.
Yeah.
It is. In the U.S., Target stock, all-time high. Walmart stock, all-time high.
Yeah.
Best Buy, in the last 3 months, all-time high.
Some of the best numbers they've turned in a decade, right? I mean, I think Target said that.
The point is they've learned to compete with Amazon, and they've learned to use these new modern tools of online and combine it with the stores, and they're just getting better and better. And I think the best retailers will figure out how to do that, and then the customer will reward them with more traffic. So retail's always been about change, and like we said at the beginning, you got to embrace disruption. If you embrace it, you won't try to fight it. You'll use it to improve what you do. And that's what I'm excited. And that's what I'll be chatting about, I think, at the conference up in Montreal. It's about the really great future if you embrace disruption.
Well, I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy it. The great, my good friend and colleague, Carl Boutet, is having a fireside chat with you. So he's a very engaging the industry expert. You guys are going to have a great time on the stage. I think the audience will as well. And I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to chat with the voice of retail. Really appreciate it.
The pleasure's mine.
And I'll be in Montreal podcasting and visiting as well. So I look forward to meeting you in person.
The sad thing, though, you're in Dublin. I know at 11 o'clock on a Monday night, you can't get a pint because the pubs close early. But thank you for talking to me.
Well, it was my pleasure. And I wish you safe travels and a safe journey to Montreal.
All right. Have a great day.
Ron, welcome to the Voice of Retail. How are you doing today?
Michael, thank you for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. Such a treat to talk with you. And I wanted to jump right in. And let's start with you telling me a little bit about your personal, professional journey. So interesting. And what you do today. And then we want to get into this book, Think, Do, Say. So let's start with a little bit about you, and then we'll talk about that.
Well, I was born in 1970. Do you want to go all the way back there? No, probably not. Well, I am.
And your third grade teacher was very influential, no doubt.
Don't laugh. My grade 7 gym teacher, Larry Lloyd, came to my book launch party just the other night.
Come
Seriously.
on.
Yeah,
that's like a Leonard Skinner story, right?
Yeah. So I'm the founder and CEO of Church and State, which is an agency based here in Toronto. And but I'm a speaker. I do probably, I think this year it'll be like 72 keynotes.
Wow.
A year. And then I just finished my second book called Think, Do, Say, which just came out. I think that the underlying foundation to all of that has always been that, that people used to vote with their wallets. Now they vote with their time. And that winning the battle for time is really the thing that businesses should be focused on, that individuals should be focused on. And that's what I've always tried to, in whatever I've done. And so, before I started the agency, I was an executive creative director at Havas, but also spent 20 years as a stand-up comedian. And so I've constantly been in that position of like having to, create things that are compelling enough for people either to laugh at or to refer or to act when it comes to advertising.
Well, I love the idea of the book because I think when you talk about consumers and understanding what they have to offer, you're absolutely right. This multidimensional awareness, right? It used to be, I have one thing to offer retailers or businesses, and that's my money, but the currency of time and probably also data. Those three dimensions are now so powerful. But you're so right about time, because we're also, if you're sometimes I think that this whole time compression is a bit of an artificial construct, but then others I know that where it's just bombarded with an onslaught of messages. And you make that analogy to Times Square. So talk about that. It kind of kicks your book off and kind of puts a nice theme to it. So what was your observation?
Yeah, especially in retail. So if you look at Times Square, and I've been lucky that I've had a couple of campaigns I've worked on that have appeared in Times Square. And, this is the most expensive promotional real estate in North America. Everybody wants to be there. And the reason they want to be there is because it's filled with opportunity. There's 400,000 people that go through Times Square every single day. And so up top, you've got all these billboards of big, flashy, big brands with a lot of money to spend. But to the consumer who's standing there, they have no idea where to look. Like, they really don't. They have no clue where to look, because there's just blink, flash, zip, ding, boom over here, flashing, scrolling. No idea where to look. And then worse, down on the street, you have entrepreneurs, I'll say entrepreneurs, who are more nimble, who are more aggressive, who are more timely, who are more customized, and they can come up to you and say, you need a new coat. I'm selling one here. You're wearing a Packers hat. Do you want a Packers t-shirt? They're trying to steer you into a comedy club, someone telling you the end of the world is coming. So on one level, consumers don't know where to look. On the other level, they don't know who to trust. Yeah. And in retail, there's no better metaphor, because you've got these big legacy retailers with budget, with polish, with prestige, with credibility. But there's so many of them, and they're so challenged that people don't know where to look and where to go. And then on the street level, you've got nimble direct-to-consumer marketers who seemingly know more about us, are more nimble, who are in our faces in our Instagram feeds, but we're not exactly sure we can trust those people. Like, can I return these pants if they're not any good?
Do you physically exist, right? It's such a fascinating dynamic that you're describing, right? From being overwhelmed in Times Square. And I think, I don't know if you saw it, that one campaign I liked, and it took your picture somehow in, you made a little heart sign and it captured your picture. It was really kind of a, cameras on Times Square kind of interpretation. And that seemed to engage people briefly, cause more traffic accidents than engage people. But, this digital first, digital natives who pop out very nimble, they're not held back by legacy. And they're popping up everywhere, some more successful than others. But you're right. I mean, who do you know to trust? Of course, big brands, you kind of learn to trust them, but trust feels like a very elastic concept these days. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think where the trust has fallen off for the legacy retailers is we trust the messaging because it's got some professionalism to it, and we know the names, and we know that they exist, and we know that there's a place that we can go to. Where it falls down is when we go in for the experience and we go, I don't trust them anymore, because the promise was that it was going to be so great, and it's crap. It's just crap. And now I don't know whether to trust them. So the big polish, that doesn't guarantee anything anymore. If anything else, worse, it's a lunch bag letdown, because I've gone into the retailer. I just had an experience last week. Funny enough, you were in Vancouver. I was in Vancouver, and I had some time before a speech, and I popped into a retailer, and I liked these pants, and I said, I like these, and I want to buy these pants. And I'm looking for 34-30. That's my weird size. And they're like, we don't have that. We can give you 34-32, and then we give you free alterations. No. I'm like, I don't live here. And the last thing I want to do is come back to pick up pants in any retail location. So the promise was it's going to be so amazing. And now tell me why I shouldn't just go online and go give me a 34-30, because I know I can do that. And it's one delivery and I don't have to go back. So on one hand, it's like, do I trust that they've won my time? Or once they've won my time, do I trust that it's going to be worth it?
Yeah, sometimes I think that the savvy marketers in in all industries, retail included, sometimes get ahead of the delivery, get ahead of the, the promise. They can be very slick, very professional, but it's the art and science of retail of having the right product, the right time, and the right store. Is still complex, right?
Yeah, so, and this goes way back to P&G's, the first and second moment of truth. Like, this is nothing new, and that was kind of what compelled me to write the book. Was that we walked away from the basic and the fundamentals of believe in something, behave in a way that reinforces that belief, and then you can talk about it. And it's worth talking about at that point if you've actually delivered on the promise. But we've been chasing things so much that individuals and retailers and brands have gotten into this frame of mind where they feel they've got to game the system because we've been told data. And so we go, just drive the numbers so we can get, and I know there's kind of two forms of data there. I'm talking kind of, structured data around, or I'm talking performance data. Yeah. And so what have we done? We go, just do whatever we need to do to drive engagement, and who cares about the back end? And we walked away from the fundamentals. And I think that is it's incredibly frustrating as a business person because it doesn't deliver to the business. It just doesn't.
And I guess that, takes us to the subject of the title of your book, Think, Do, Say, and how to seize attention and build trust. So walk us through, kind of not chapter by chapter, but walk us through how you thought about, this is a big problem or a big issue you're articulating, right? This is the issue of the ages. This is not it's in some ways more easily articulated than it is understood, and certainly more easily understood than it is the solution. But, looking through your book, you come up with some great ideas. It's got a great scope. So walk us through kind of how you approached helping us with this new book.
Yeah, I on one hand, I wanted to simplify a framework because I thought that things had gotten way too complex, and that and because of that, nobody knew exactly what to do, how to apply it to their organization, and we had walked away from the fundamentals. So how do we simplify a framework that dials into the fundamentals of what a business needs to do, and that is easily customizable and extendable into both the person and the leader within an organization as well as the organization itself? So that was why I wanted to do it that way, because there's probably some of your listeners that are like, it's just 3 words. It doesn't sound that brilliant to me, right? But that's the point. That is the point. So right. The think part is that, again, if we want to seize attention and help to build trust, the first thing we need to know is we need to stand for something that goes beyond the thing we sell. If you're a retailer and you stand for, and your fundamental corporate purpose is great goods at great prices, good luck with that. Because there's a million of y'all that are saying that, and I don't trust it. I just don't. Especially if it's a store where you're curating other products from existing manufacturers and suppliers. Really, like, what have you got that is so special from everybody else? So you need to believe in something more important than the thing you sell. And it's not, it doesn't have to be social issue, but it should elevate the conversation to something that you can care about. Because what that does is it allows you to cut through, because everybody else is talking price points and liquidation sale. So it helps you win the battle for time. It also helps position your brand or if it's a person, your career, for a more diversified portfolio. If GM only stands for making cars, they're only ever going to make a car. When cars go out of business because we're all in ride shares and everything else, then they need to stand for something else. They need to stand for transportation, not automotives, which is why GM is now making a car or a bike. Sorry.
You remind me of a very topical narrative I heard from Harley Davidson. So Harley Davidson is now producing e-bikes. They had to recall them all last week, but hopefully that'll be just a speed bump, so to speak, for them. But I was listening to the CEO of Harley Davidson, and the question was, well, Harley Davidson stands for a bunch of different things to a bunch of different people, right? The 1%ers or the accountants who just want to scare people in small towns. But the one thing there was a sound to a Harley Davidson, right? And the question was, wait a minute, you're introducing a bike that has no sound. And the narrative they were talking about was, it's about the experience and being part of your environment, like you're out of a car and you're part of the environment. So is that what you're thinking, like something bigger than what you are? And Harley Davidson is kind of a good brand to kind of chat through in the contemporary context. What do you think of how they're trying to position this new line of products attached to that kind of brand legacy?
Yeah, I mean, Harley Davidson has never been about selling motorcycles. Harley Davidson has been about a rebellious attitude. That's what they fundamentally believe in. And because of that, they have done things that have reinforced that belief. So 1, it's a leather vest. They dial that up. 2, it's tattoos. 3, it's been the sound of the bike, right? So then that's a rebellious sound.
Yeah.
Now, times change. And, our beliefs change as people, and our beliefs change as organizations. And sometimes we need to go, you know what? The thing we do right now doesn't actually reinforce the belief we have. It's no longer the appropriate choice. Or sometimes it's our beliefs themselves. So, yeah, I mean, if Harley Davidson only stood for making a great motorcycle, they would have made a better motorcycle. I mean, they're not the fastest motorcycle,
right?
Not even close. Yeah. They're not the most comfortable motorcycle, not even close. But they are certainly a motorcycle that delivers on the belief that a rebellious attitude in life makes us happier and more fulfilled.
And I brought that up because, I always try to kind of bring down the big advice about, because many retailers have CSR programs. So it's not new that retailers and other businesses would try to have a dimension beyond the transactional dimension, right? And retailers are really working hard to break, because if you're just a transactional relationship, Amazon is going to roll right over you because they're just so good at that. So to get beyond not just the Amazon, beyond a pure transactional into more of a relationship, into more experiential. I mean, these are the things it sounds like you're pointing us in the direction of with the book.
Yeah, definitely. Amazon, actually, we don't know what Amazon stands. Nobody is exactly sure what the hell Amazon is up to, really. There's about 8 different theories on what the end game is. Mm-hmm. But Amazon is winning the functional battle, totally. And that doesn't mean that we can't, fight them on some things, but there are other things. You count Amazon, but we can certainly do other things that reinforce a bigger belief. And I have an issue when brands say, oh no, we believe in something more important. Here's our CSR activity. It's like, that's not it. That's not your purpose. Come on. That's social issue. That's philanthropy. And I get that. I get that why you would want to do that, but don't tell me that's why you exist. I mean, if Audi makes a commercial that talks about gender equality in the workforce, that's a great issue to get behind, but it's not corporate purpose. It's not the reason they make cars. I mean, if Harley Davidson stands for a rebellious attitude as a better way to live, that is directly linked to the thing where they make all their money. If you believe in, your big belief is in saving the planet, I'm sorry, making fast fashion does not contribute to that belief. So I think we have to be very, very clear. If you look at what Red Bull's belief is that life with an adrenaline rush is just a better way to live. It's not, down with the an obesity issue because of, sugared beverages or whatever. It's not that. So I think going CSR is an easy default. Now, in some cases, that is the right thing to do. If you're Nike and you fundamentally believe that you should support athletes, you're morally obligated to run an ad supporting Colin Kaepernick. If you're Gillette and you for years have said that this is the best a man can get, it is, you've declared what your corporate purpose is, and now it's time to look at that corporate purpose and to say, are we doing enough so that we can, create and be in a place that is the best a man can get? So in those cases, it made sense.
Right. And that is the, the do and say part, the so important part. So talk us through that. What advice do you have to retailers other than reading your book, which is a great read?
Yeah, thank you. We'll put you on
step one, read my book, right? Okay.
Yeah, we'll put you on the commission plan. Yeah, so the belief is the think part, and then the do is what do you do to reinforce that belief? And there are three parts of the do that are absolutely critical, because what I find is sometimes people go like, okay, we got to do a bunch of stuff, and then what they end up doing is what my friend Warren Tomlin from EY refers to as random acts of digital. They're just running around doing shit, right? It's just all over the place. And we need to be targeted in our actions, and we have to act and behave with strategic intent. And so we have to ask ourselves, one, who are we doing it for? Like, specifically, who are we doing it for? And from an organization, from a big retailer, the easy thing is when they go, we do it for the customer. Give me a break. Your person in procurement, they do not do it for the customer. They do it for the CFO. And if you're in shipping, you know what? You don't do it for the customer. You do it for head of operations. So within an organization, we have to ask ourselves, who do we as individual people, or what departments within an organization, who do they do it for? And some of those people, frontline employees, yes, they do it for the customer, but even then, they should be doing it for an individual. So how do we personalize an experience to the individual? So who do we do it for? Second thing is, what do they want us to do? And I go, this sounds really simple, but at the end of the day, the people that you serve want you to solve certain problems. If I'm a 3430, my problem is I'm not coming back for alterations. I'm just not. Shut up and solve my problem. So you know that you're serving me. This is the thing I want you to do. Allow me to buy this size of pant without coming back. And you may go, that doesn't work with our business model. Then great. Then you don't get the sale. And I'm not saying that you should go bankrupt doing it, but you have to look at how can we best solve those problems. The third part is, who do you do it with? Right. And so who we do it with when we're aligned on beliefs is more important than who we do it for. And so these are your employees, and these are your partners, and these are your suppliers. And we have to protect those relationships, and we need to acknowledge those relationships. As a guy who owns an agency, the conversation I hate is when a client brings up the word partner only when we're talking compensation. Yeah. Right? It's like, oh, now I'm a partner. Okay, great. Got it.
I thought, was I a mercenary before?
Yeah, right.
Now I'm a partner.
So that's the do part. And then the say part is, look, if in this really busy, crazy world, if you fundamentally believe in something more important and you actually behave in a way that reinforces that belief, that is worth talking about, and that is going to cut through. But it's not enough. It's still not enough, because if it's worth talking about, it's worth talking about in a way that is consistent, that is compelling, that adds value, that is relevant, and that is completely authentic. And so when you combine all three of those things, we find that brands and leaders, they actually stand out, they grab attention, and they build trust over the long haul.
Well, Ron, I think, you've put on a clinic in a few short minutes of how to think about brand and how to think about retail in the modern context. How do people get a hold of you? Obviously, the book is available now, or shortly will be available in all the places people buy books, I would expect.
Everywhere, every retailer in Canada and the US, and Audible for audiobook and Kindle and all those other things. Yeah, it's totally available.
Right. And I'll put a link. To in the show notes as well. And how, if people want to learn more about you or get a hold of you, or
they can go to rontite.com, or they can go to churchstate.co.
Thanks so much for spending time with me here on The Voice of Retail. It was a great conversation, and look forward to touching base with you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Michael, and to everybody listening out there, thank you.
Well, thanks to Ron for being my guests on this episode. Now let's hit the highlights from Retail This Week e-newsletter. Put this newsletter together, the biggest circulation of any weekly in Canada and put it together each and every week, 51 weeks of the year. Subscribe for free at retailcouncil.org. Lead off with a sneak peek into the new Italy store. This is from the Globe and Mail, but it was covered in a bunch of places as well. But they had a nice sneak peek into this new store, 50,000 square foot, opening at Bay and Bloor. I used to live in the Manulife Center, so it's kind of fun to watch that area evolve, and that's a big deal. I think it's opening up November 13th, they say. They now put a line in the sand, a date on the ground or whatever. So that's been a long road, many, many years actually, but it's been under construction probably for about 18 months, 24 months. Really reconceptualize that entire building. So it will be something to see. It'll be the most recent, most modern articulation of what Ely thinks grocery retail is in the world, actually. So that'll be something to see. Check that article out. Indigenous footwear brand Manitoba Mucklucks launches aggressive Canadian retail store strategy. This from Retail Insider. I know the folks from that brand from years and years ago. Launched with us when I was at the Shopping Channel. A great story, great backstory. Great team making a great product, so we wish them well. I guess they did a few pop-ups, and they did really well. They did 3, actually, reading the story, and they worked well, and now they're doing an aggressive pop-up strategy, so that's congratulations to them. Great to see. A year later, Alberta cannabis use up 25%, 500 pot stores likely by 2021, according to Calgary Herald. So we covered off retail cannabis quite a bit last episode, talking about the canniversary, and really we're starting to see that the benefits flow into Alberta, which is the province that is miles ahead, at least in store count. Other provinces, New Brunswick, Saskatchewan doing interesting things, and Nova Scotia Liquor doing interesting things. So many provinces doing interesting things. Alberta is leading in terms of getting stores open and capturing that opportunity. By the way, be sure and get the latest in retail cannabis thoughts and thought leadership. November 19th, I'll be on the main stage leading that, help lead that, and help great discussions. Check that out, retailcouncil.org. Check out the event section, and that is on November 9th in Toronto. Sobeys unveils Canada's first smart grocery cart. This from CBC, a frictionless shopping experience. Cart features multiple cameras, scanner, scale, and payment system. It looks pretty neat from the pictures. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to go try and give it a go. And it's interesting, right? You try these, whether it's a self checkout or bring your own device where there's an app. This one, I guess the scanner addresses that issue of buying fresh produce, obviously important for Sobeys, and a bit of technology in advance of their big deal with Ocado. So they're building big warehouses and launching Voila next year, but in the meantime, doing some great work in the stores. That from CBC. Speaking of big, giant bespoke food courts or food districts, Montreal's Time Out Market is now announced that it's going to open November 14th at the Eaton Centre in Montreal. It's funny that I guess Ely wants to get in there the day prior. So that's going to be a big deal in the city of Montreal. Lots of acclaimed chefs, 16 restaurant spaces, some of the most acclaimed chefs. This from the Montreal Gazette. HBC, one of my old companies that I worked for, both old and a company I worked for, agrees to be taken private after Richard Baker sweetens the deal. So that's been bouncing around for a while. I guess he's put forward a higher bid. I think it's 10 and change. So it values the retail at 1.9 and hopes to get that through. So good luck to them. What else? Let's see. Retailers across the food industry, be sure and go if you're in the grocery industry. Some great work going on at the Golden Pencil Awards, also on November 19th, but in the evening where they're honoring significant contributors to the grocery industry. Be sure and check that out. Retail around the world. So the big story around the world, I guess outside of Canada, is the opening of the Nordstrom store in New York City, finally opening this week. It is going to be the largest store opened in New York City in 50 years. I guess Macy's probably was that, at least at 34th Street. Biggest store in New York, 50 years. So not the first department store, or Neiman Marcus opened their first department store up in Hudson Yards last year. But it's a huge bet. It's huge in many ways. 320,000 square feet, 7 stories. It's baked into one of these luxury billionaire type towers. So it's got a ready-made population to shop. But that's a lot of space. So they're making, the Nordstrom family making a bet. And this is an article, a great article in the New York Times, inside the Nordstrom dynasty. There's also a video that you can watch in the retail in retail news, retail this week, that are very interesting. You're going to hear lots about this store, and I'm going to plan to visit that store soon. From Retail Dive, at Costco, everything resonates with the consumer. It's kind of a summary article. It really just highlights how well Costco is doing. And it delves into a whole bunch of things we've actually talked about before. The strength of their Kirkland brand, for example. We talked about Costco's opening in China was quite successful. They're reporting in this article, the club retailer reported a membership base of 94.3 million at the end of fiscal 2018. That's interesting when you compare that to Amazon Prime, which I think is about 105. As much as we know, I don't think they've regularly updated it, but the Prime Day being the thing that drives that, and equal to or greater than renewal on those memberships. So that's interesting. 94.3 million Costco members. Talk about a flywheel effect. Great summary article again from the New York Times. A bunch of great articles in the New York Times this week, and it really looks at the family that built Forever 21. It built it up at its peak. $4 billion in annual sales, 43,000 people, hundreds of stores around the world. It's out closing in Canada, consolidating pretty much everywhere around the world, closing stores in the U.S. We'll see. We wish them luck, but I'm not sure Forever 21 is going to be able to make it through a pretty tough transition. But again, we wish them luck. Destination Maternity files for bankruptcy. Speaking of a bit of difficulties, retailer employs about 1,100 full-time people, 2,300 part-time people. This is in the U.S., 458 stores, with a bunch of different brands, Mother Maternity, Pea in the Pod, all obviously around the maternity sector, but looking like they've run into some trouble for sure. And a great article from Fast Company. Patagonia founder Yvon Chouinard talks about sustainability myth, the problem with Amazon, and it's not too late to solve the planet. So lots of wisdom coming from Yvon Chouinard. He's a real leader in retail and retail sustainability. So it's a great article to read out of Fast Company. What else we got? We got in the independent retailers, and I put it in here because it's pretty relevant. The BC government working to change their cannabis retail rules. This is good news because they're really, BC is really a market of craft growers, so they're trying to get small scale producers in as a segment. And you think of them like the craft beer market, all the way to products that are able to be sold through get these small bespoke growers licensed, get their product to market, and then maybe even who knows, like breweries be able to buy at source. So I think lots of great work and thinking. It's good to see the BC government talking about that. They haven't really spoken much about changing or their perspectives on cannabis, so that's good to see. What else? Digital retail. We've got Amazon expands in-store pickup service, so I guess they've got a counter service in many stores, and they just expanded that to GNC, Health Mart, and Stage stores. I guess that for those stores drives some store traffic. I guess. And the bet, of course, is that some of that traffic converts into buying the product in the stores, and that's the bet that these folks are making. So you can do an Amazon pickup now in GNC in the U.S. Some research coming from this report in CNBC. I think it's Deloitte that did this research, that Cyber Monday is surpassing Black Friday as a preferred day for deals around the holiday season. That's interesting. Now, it's U.S. data, and what I find interesting about that is twofold. Of course, in the U.S., there is no... it's a holiday, and in Canada it is not. So I think you'd see strong online sales in Canada for sure, but more spread across the weekend. Certainly, when we Retail Council of Canada did this research talking to consumers, they were articulated less interested in shopping on the Monday than the Friday or other days in the week. So we'll see how that pans out. Just an interesting perspective and graphs report in CNBC. And we've talked about Amazon and their eye on disrupting the healthcare industry. They just purchased Health Navigator. And this is the first health-related purchase since PillPack. And what's holding Amazon back is their access to patient data. And I guess this is one of those things that will address that shortcoming in their healthcare model. So we'll keep our eyes open for that. Of course, they bought PillPack last year for close to $1 billion and shook that particular industry up. But I think it's a tough road to hoe in kind of stitching together that ecosystem. Well, that's a wrap on this To Ron episode of The Voice of Retail. Shout out there to fans of the classic British comedy TV show, To Ronnies. If you like this podcast, you can subscribe on Apple iTunes, your favorite podcast platform. Please rate and review, and be sure to recommend to a friend or colleague in the retail industry. I'm Michael LeBlanc, founder and president of LeBlanc Company Inc. And you can learn more about me on www.meleblanc.co or, of course, on LinkedIn. So until next time, have a great week.